fresh from the fairways, greens, and clubhouses of the world's leading golf industry professionals. It's time for today's Fairway Executive Podcast with your host, Jeff Harrison.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Fairway Executive. I'm your host, Jeff Harrison. Today, I have a special guest who is a wealth of experience in digital marketing, social media, PR, and business planning for more than 2 decades. She's been working in technology, golf, electronic publishing, and not-for-profit sectors. When she's not working hard for her clients, she is either golfing or writing about it. She wrote daily for Golf for Women magazine's website and continues to provide golf news and commentary from a businesswoman's perspective on her Golf Gal blog. And for Inside Golf and Golf Today Northwest magazine. She holds a Bachelor of Computer Science honors degree and is a member of the Professional Writers Association of Canada. Please help me welcome Gail Moss with On Market Consulting Incorporated. Gail, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, Gail, I've let people know just a little bit about you, but take a minute and tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and what's kind of gotten you in this little bug in what you do.
Well, I've come through the technology area, and I love technology, and so where we are today in technology excites me because the opportunities are so great in digital marketing and particularly in social media. I fell into golf late in life. It was only, maybe 7 years ago that I got the bug. And because I love to write, since I wasn't a great golfer, I thought, well, maybe I'll be a great writer about golf. And so, putting those two together, my passion for golf, my passion for marketing and technology, I'm kind of in a space right now where I'm trying to help people take advantage of the technology that is available today to help grow the game of golf.
That's exciting. We're going to dive very deep into that subject. But before we get started, I'd like to ask a question of, hey, we all have some kind of a quote that we use as a filter or guide us through our life. Gail, what's your favorite quote?
I work in words and language and messaging. And so when Nelson Mandela said this, it stuck with me, and I use it every day when I'm working. Said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. But if you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. And I think today we need to really pay attention to that because our generation and the generation that's coming up behind us, we don't speak the same language.
Wow. I'm sorry I had to catch my breath because that is powerful and resonates so truly with somebody who's been in the golf business from, hey, I've schlepped bags from the parking lot to clean clubs to run facilities, that it is so true that we try to communicate with people in our language instead of their language. Tell me how you're using that platform, the internet space, the technologies platform, to really do that, Gail.
The easy thing about it for in the golf industry, because I obviously use social media in all of the areas that I work, and you mentioned them, but in the golf space, there are so many golfers on social media that nobody's talking to. The golfers talk to each other, but the businesses don't talk to the golfers. And if they do, they're just pushing product through the medium. And so the golfers, yes, they do learn about product, but they're not engaging. They're basically getting advertised to. So the old paradigm of pushing print ads out, they're trying to use that same method to push their messages out to an audience that really isn't listening. You go on and the golfers are talking about the PGA players. The PGA players get it. They understand that this is about communicating and engaging. It's not about selling. And so when I'm using social media, I want people to engage. I want to ask questions. I want to listen. I want to pay attention. And I want to adapt my messaging to meet what drives them to take action. And, it's not easy. I'm not going to pretend that it is, but it really is that simple. Just talk to people as if you're having a conversation with them in the hallway over the coffee machine. Don't start thinking you have to push stuff through print, online or through social media or mobile that is just, presenting your side of the equation. You have to meet the needs of the person who's listening on the other side.
Gail, you published an article on the 31st of August that absolutely got my attention because in our business, we're doing the same thing or similar things. We're reaching out to golf industry specific people that are leaders and saying, hey, we need to do something different. And because we've been working in the video marketing online space, we're trying to teach them how to use that. In your article, you rolled out some, quite frankly, some stats that if you're ignoring this, you might as well just pull that last little bit of dirt over your head and move on. Can you share with us some of the realities of your study?
Yeah. I was using data that was actually generated quite a few years ago by the National Golf Foundation, who were looking at sort of the profile of core golfers and the fact that the core golfers play 85% of the rounds and contribute 85% of the spending in the U.S. golf industry. That's an important target market. But people don't realize that they're more engaged with social media and consumer-generated content than the general population out there, which says to me, wow, what an opportunity. 60% of core golfers have a profile in social media networks in some way, shape, or form. Facebook's popular. Lots are on Twitter. In fact, I actually just did a little study that said, if I were to market through Facebook to golfers, how many are out there on Facebook? And between the ages of 18 and, say, 65, there are 18.2 million golfers on Facebook. So, that's a huge opportunity that we're not capitalizing on. There are 3.7 million core golfers who regularly read blogs about golf brands, courses, travel related to golf. 6.9 million of them visit a social network site at least once a week, and 3.9 visit it every day. I mean, the stats are just amazing, and yet people aren't capitalizing on what's there.
Gail, when you say they're not capitalizing, is it because we as in the golf business, and quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, we're a little slow to change. We're in a traditional golf game that says, hey, we tee it up, we're going to play 18 holes, and we call strokes on ourselves, and all those things that are key to the game being as durable as it is. But what's the reason we in the golf industry are not really getting a hold of this? I mean, this is like grabbing a hold of a motorboat and saying, this will propel me forward at a very high rate of speed. What are you seeing is causing that?
Well, social media is, it's a fundamental change on how people live who are over the age of 40. I mean, it was for the kids, right? We never really, I'm into it because I do marketing and I can see the potential, but I understand, the golf course owners and people who are in the industry, one, they're an older demographic, and they just don't see the value there. They look at it and say, I'm too busy. They look at it and they say, well, I really don't get whatever social media network we're talking about. Typically people I hear say Twitter. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know where to start, and social media changes constantly. So it's hard to keep up. So at the end of the day, they basically just sort of throw up their hands and they're kind of lost. And, I understand all of those excuses, but the thing is they just don't actually see value in it. They'd rather spend thousands of dollars putting a pretty picture of their golf course in a printed magazine that only sits on the shelves in golf courses, never reaches the youth, and yet, they think it costs too much in time and money to do social media, and it's just not true.
Can you give boy, that kind of gives me chills on the back of my neck, because that is so true that we talk to people about this and they're like, well, we're putting our money in ads in magazines. And I'm like, oh, no, please. Nothing against magazines. Mm-hmm. But that's not reaching that millennial, that age group that says that's going to be really the part of the savior for this golf industry.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, we're just preaching to the converted. And, I understand that. You've got a core audience that's already buying from you. Yeah, you want to keep in touch with them. But you're not looking forward. I mean, those core golfers, who's going to enter and, and replace them in the industry, And I kind of, I see why – and I'm sorry, I'm maybe focusing on golf courses, but they're spending more time worried about lobbying to raise money to fight regulation changes, whether it's pesticides or using golf as a business expense or taxes, whatever they're doing, and those are immediate, urgent needs that they have. So they're instead of having a business plan with a longer term vision, they're really focusing on the day to day just to keep their heads above water. And really what they're going to do is drown because the future is taking over faster than they can imagine. And, they need to change how they do business. They need to offer to those millennials, to the youth, what they want. It's so simple in marketing. Give your audience what they want. Golf's too long. Golf's too expensive. Golf's too inflexible. Golf's not inclusive. These are all facts, and there's lots of proof to it. And the kids look at golf, and they just go, that's my parents' game. So it's a tough one. But, it's not that there isn't hope. There are people trying to make changes. It's just not a collective. There's no consensus in the industry on what needs to be done. And you ask a golf course to offer a 9-hole tee option, or even offer, a card of 18 holes and play them as you want. It's just what can't be done. It just can't be done. That's not the way our tee sheet works. Well, it's going to be an empty tee sheet in the next 15 years if you're not careful.
Well, that takes you right back to your core quote of we need to speak to our audience in their voice. Mm-hmm. And, over the course of, I've been very blessed to talk to people such as yourself who are just really on the cutting edge of saying, we have to somehow figure out, we can't use, it won't work at my facility anymore. We have to figure out how to offer that 3-hole round, the 6-hole round, the 8, if somebody wants to play 18 holes, great. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean we alienate or polarize those people. Say, hey, I want to play, but I've got time for 3 holes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you were using just one mechanism out there in that social media space, give me an example of what that would be and what kind of thing, because you did a study and got some incredible results. How would someone go about doing that? And give me an idea of time and expense for, let's say, a novice.
Okay. Well, it is a little overwhelming, social media. I can't tell you how many social media sites are out there. There's just way too many. So what you need to do is start simple. Figure out where your core audience is and choose that. Facebook and Twitter are good options. And both of those have a lot of similarities in how you interact with people on there. So what you need is you need some help. You need some mentoring. You need to learn from somebody who knows what they're doing. So that you can take over the business of doing social media within your club or in your business. Because at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, you don't want to pay somebody full-time forever just to do social media. It has to be part of the day-to-day operations of the golf course and the people who are already engaging with golfers and other people in the industry. So, find somebody who can give you a kickstart program in some way to get you going, set up your accounts, teach you how to fish, hands-on training, doing some of the work for you at the beginning, transitioning it over to you to do the day-to-day management as you can afford in terms of time and money. And because you do need help. I mean, you start jumping in, you'll sit there staring at a blank screen on your computer going, what do I write about today? And it's so frustrating. I understand why people abandon it.
Yeah, you're a full-time writer, yes?
A full-time marketer, and writing is a lot of what I do.
Okay. So when that comes down to that, what would people, let's say you're like I was at Mission Hills Country Club for many, many years, beautiful facility, 54 holes. What kind of things would I, let's say, put on a Facebook page to engage? Because that's the big word, is engagement, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep, engagement.
What kind of things would I put out there to engage that ideal client and speak to them in their language?
Okay. So in any social media, and if it is Facebook we're talking about here, you've got a lot of people out there who are talking about what's going on in golf. Pay attention. Listen to what they're talking about. You've got people there who like your page. Go out and check posting about, and then start to respond to that. The thing is, we do a lot of talking and we don't do a lot of listening or reading. And so find out what's hot. It's easy to find out. There are tools to give you what's the latest hot discussion going on in Facebook and Twitter or whatever social media, and then have an opinion about it and share your thoughts. If you say post 4 or 5 times a day on Facebook, you're going to get a lot of engagement if 4 out of those 5 aren't about you. They're about the industry, about topics of interest, what people are already discussing. And then just 1 in 5, tell them what's going on at the club, whether it's in the pro shop, whether it's a sale, whether, something in the restaurant, maybe there's a special going on, anything. Talk about yourself once in 5. Because if you do more than that, then you're just outselling and people aren't buying.
Yeah, their meter or their filter is on high, isn't it? I mean, they can tell when you're just trying to sell them something versus really engaging, kind of getting to know them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So with that idea, it sounds to me like you're saying, hey, give before you expect to get.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great line. I love it. I'll use that if you don't mind.
Quite all right. So with that thought in mind, it makes me feel like, Gail, all you're saying is take that same mental process that if I'm teeing up on the first tee and I'm a threesome and they put a single in there, build that relationship by communicating with that new person. Mm-hmm. Could it be that simple?
It is. It is simple. Simple isn't always easy, but it is simple. I mean, you meet somebody for the first time. It's like cocktail parties. Some people love them and some people hate them. And if there's a new person that joins, they feel left out. They're feeling a little uncertain. Well, that's kind of like the audience, the youth in the golf industry. They don't feel wanted. They were just thrown in there and they kind of don't feel like they're, really included. So yeah, you got to include them and you got to make them feel welcome. And then you have to talk to them about what they're interested in. It's the same thing as just meeting somebody for the first time. And so it was a good analogy that you did off the first tee because it is tough being a single. That's why a lot of women actually won't go out, even though they can play. They won't go out and be in a single in a foursome. They just don't know who they'll end up with.
Would you like to ramp up your golf facility sales and increase the number of rounds of golf played at your venue every week? If you want to master how online marketing can rapidly improve your bottom line for your golf business, then you need to join us at www.golfindustrytrainingassociation.com.
With this whole social media process, you mentioned something about 3.9 million people visit every day. They visit some type of social media network. I mean, that's amazing because everything I hear and I talk to people and they're talking about their rounds going down, the revenues are dropping. And what I see happening, and I know you know this, is instead of doing what you're saying, which is so much more in building value in your product, I see them dropping their prices. What's the danger in that?
Yeah, it's because that's all they know how to do. I mean, it's the traditional way of, bringing more people to the course is drop your prices, or you start posting on other sites with their discount tee times. It's just a lack of imagination or, maybe an open-mindedness to realize there are other options. And so, it's the easy thing to do. It's not the best thing to do, but and if they offered, 18 holes, I have to give you there's an example of a golf course in Hawaii, in Kanapali. They offer a card of 18 holes, and you go there and you can play one hole one day, 3 the next, 4 the next day, and you have the flexibility. Is it cheap? Absolutely not. Their 18 hole round is not on the low end of the scale. But instead of lowering their prices, what they did is they gave more flexibility to how you play their golf courses. And I think it's brilliant because, people who are vacationing there, often the spouse wants to go play and the other half, doesn't want to lose 5 hours of that time. And this way it works perfectly within their schedule. I love that innovation. I just love to see more of it.
What a great piece for the audience. You need to write that down, gang, because you're getting all your money up front, right? And then you're just serving it as they desire it.
That's right. And, and then it is an honor system. You come in and say, I'm going to play 4 holes today. They say, that's fine. And they don't go around and marshal you, check you because, it is a gentleman's sport and everybody, and golfers for the most part, are willing to, they're not going to cheat. And if they cheat on a hole, who cares really? At the end of the day, they've got somebody out there who's going back and saying, I just played this course. It was so great and I had such fun and I could play it the way I wanted to play it. I could play one because they have 2 courses. I could play one course one day, the other course the next, whatever. Again, you made golf fun and you didn't take anything away from the traditions of the game.
That's brilliant. So you mentioned something earlier. You said, hey, someone needs to find a Kickstarter program to get them going. What do you offer your clients? Because I know you do this for a business, obviously, but tell us about your Kickstarter program and how that would help that individual golf course, that individual head pro or general manager.
Yeah. Well, I do offer a Kickstart program that involves starting off with developing a social media strategy plan. I mean, if you don't have a plan and you just have a hope, that's not going to get you anywhere. So, yeah, a goal without a plan is a wish, is what they say. And so we start with a plan. It's not complicated. It really is just understanding what is it you're trying to achieve, who you're trying to achieve it with, and what are we going to do to make that happen? And then we go on and we choose what are the right social networking sites that you want to work. We keep it simple. Don't do too much because you'll get overwhelmed. And then I take over some of the work, teach them how to use some of the tools, do the work for them, with them in collaboration over a couple of months or a month or 6 weeks, whatever it is that works with them. And then I hand it off, and I make sure I'm always there if they run into problems to support them along the way. And at the end of the day, they take it over and they start creating their content. They start creating their, all of their messaging, and I'm there as a resource, but I'm not doing all the fishing, if you understand. I want them to, if they don't get engaged, if they don't learn it and take it over, they'll never engage with the audience they're trying to bring into their organization.
Can you cite any specific examples? You don't have to mention a club or person by name, but can you give us an example of when you've done this with someone who is maybe at ground zero? What have they noticed in the growth of that engagement and potential revenues?
Well, it depends on a lot on the type of organization. I do kickstart programs with small golf businesses because they're too busy just trying to make ends meet and make sales. So I've done it with small sort of mom and pop type organizations who didn't have a clue what social media was about, and they had a cool product. So one was custom head covers for golf clubs. Another one was a cold golf ball that works in the winter. It works best in the winter. Another one is a virtual golf club for just women. So all of them are amazed when they see the results of a Facebook contest. Then suddenly they've got all of these leads of people they've never met that they now can start to engage with, not just through social, but through newsletters, email newsletters, and through the content on their site. So then you start to see how they create relationships with, again, people on social that they've never met. And then they start seeing people sharing what they've said to them to other friends. And so it's the whole tell two friends who tell two friends who tell two friends. So, it's that's what social does if you engage. And it does turn into sales. It does turn into business growth. It is one of those things, though, that I'm seeing that they start fishing and then they fall off, and then I got to encourage them back on. So it's one of those things that it's not really an ending. I hand it off, and then they suddenly hugely successful. They got to keep it going, and it's really easy to get distracted. So I'm always there watching and saying, hey, I didn't see you brush your teeth today. And if you don't brush your teeth every day, you're not going to have a very healthy mouth. Well, social media is like brushing your teeth. You got to do it every single day. It doesn't go on vacation. It doesn't sleep. So, that's sort of my advice. And I'll just tease them about it and get them kickstarted again just by, sort of kicking them in the butt a bit.
I love that because we as golfers, whether we teach the game or play the game, we know if we only play once every 6 weeks, it's going to be a challenge. We're not going to like it as much. Mm-hmm. But if we have drills, i.e. your program, and we follow on a consistent basis, next thing you know, they become the habits that really form the game, that leads to enjoyment and a lifetime of the game. And we bring other people aboard. I love your idea. Tell us how someone would engage you to get involved in your program.
Yeah. Well, my website is just to get to know me a little better. Is it's called On Market. It's ONMARKIT instead of ET.com. And in there, it sort of describes some of my clients, what I've done for them, and how I'm working in the golf industry. And then you can very easily contact me through gail.moss@onmarket.com to learn more. So yeah, it's there. And my golf blog to see how passionate I am about the game is golfgal.ca, as I'm in Canada. And so those are different places that you can find me.
Okay, I have a couple questions. I'm going to let you go. I know I've taken a lot of your time today, but I could talk to you for days because you've got so much going on, and I know we've just barely scratched the surface. But what do you see moving forward is probably the biggest threat to the golf industry?
I think it's the lack of will to change is the biggest thing that I have at the top of the food chain. And, and the lack of consensus in the industry. There are a lot of initiatives about growing, making a 8-inch hole or 15-inch hole. And those are all, admirable that people are trying to do something. But the fundamental problem is not being addressed. And that is the millennial issue and the youth and the lack of will to change. If change doesn't happen, golf will become a niche sport at best, or be dominated by the countries coming into the game more recently in Asia, and the North America will start to just lose a great opportunity.
Well, that would be a sad day in golf history. The last question, and this is my favorite. You've been given a magic wand, Gail, and you can have one wish, but it has to be the wish to whatever it would take to change the golf industry to be an upward trajectory. What would that one wish you would make be?
Well, that's a fun question. I had a few answers. But if it truly is a magic wand, I'd take every golfer over the age of 40 and turn them into an 18-year-old for a couple of weeks and let them look at golf through the eyes of a teenager. And then let them go back and see what they can do to really change the game. Because at 18, golf looks pretty silly.
What a great answer. I cannot wait to hear the feedback from our audience. Go back and walk in their shoes, and you see things so differently. Gail, you have been an absolute gem to have on our show, and I look forward to having you back again because, again, we just barely scratched the surface. Once again, before I let you go, tell us how someone would reach out and get in touch with you.
Okay. My website is www.onmarkit.com, onmarkit.com, or Gayle, Gayle.moss, MOSS, at onmarkit.com.
Gail, thanks for joining us. And also, thank you for joining us for another episode of Fairway Executive. I'm Jeff Harrison. We'll see you again next time.
Well, that wraps up another insightful podcast for today. If you would like to listen to a replay of our other podcasts or even join in the Golf Industry Training Association, then head on over to www.golfindustrytrainingassociation.com.
It looks like a ticker tape parade.